Do Scottish ghosts wear kilts? Does iron brew imply the existence of steel brew, bronze brew? All of these questions you can find the answer to on this Paranormal Life! Hello everyone and welcome back to a very special episode of This Paranormal Life, the comedy paranormal podcast where every week we investigate a brand new paranormal tale, case, claim, or beast and come to a conclusion as to whether or not it truly is paranormal. Now, usually you'd be hearing from us in our cozy London headquarters, but today we're out in the field. That's right, we're coming to you all the way from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Oh shit, is that where we are? I turned up to the TPL studios yesterday. Rory put a bag over my head, hit me with a 2x4, and I woke up minutes ago.
Yeah.
So that actually would explain a lot. Edinburgh, you say, in Scotland?
It is, yeah. I got actually too excited when I put the bag over your head because I think I bagged you up, hit you over the head.
Yeah.
And then I thought I had more time, so I went to go get a coffee. I came back, you were awake, had to bag you up, hit you over the head. I had a couple emails to do, so I wanted to make sure I just wrapped those up before we went on our journey. So I hit you over the head. Yeah, you came to again. Hit you over the head again. That time, you didn't get up for a real long time.
Really?
That was weird. You lost a couple days.
I thought it was yesterday.
No, it's Tuesday.
What?
Yeah. You knocked out last Tuesday. It's been a week.
There's so many better ways for you to do this.
Well, take it easy, bud. Don't criticize me. You're going to get the bag and a hit. That's what's going to happen. It's true. We're coming at you right now from our Airbnb right up here in Scotland because in just a few days, we're going to be performing at Edinburgh Fringe.
Yeah, this is extremely exciting. If you're watching this on youtube.com, you're seeing an amazing backdrop. The American mind can't comprehend Edinburgh, I think. I mean, your American mind can because you've lived in the UK a long time. But even for me, coming over from Ireland, it's always a surprise just how kind of cool and magical the city is.
It's crazy. Cobblestone streets, old castles. It looks like something from a Lovecraftian horror, pointy black railings circling graveyards, crows in the sky. I also saw 4 cats this morning, which is maybe a personal record for the amount of cats seen before lunchtime.
And of course, it reminds us all of a popular franchise about wizards known as Beep. We won't be talking about that today, but it is a magical city. It's really exciting to be here. I haven't been here in many years. Have you ever been here?
I went once as a child for a school trip. I went to Edinburgh Castle, and my only memory of the city is sitting on top of a cannon and pretending like it was my penis.
Crazy. I mean, you honestly kind of 100%ed the city. You completed it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Honestly, and very little has changed. I think if we went to the castle, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I see you blocked out a lot of tomorrow for a day trip.
I want to make sure I get the picture.
Okay, I'm guessing that's what it's for. It's really exciting to be here. We are here specifically during Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yes, a huge comedy festival that takes over the entire city. It runs for an entire month where the whole downtown is just transformed into hundreds of venues performing thousands of shows from performers all over the world.
Yeah, it's kind of a really cool electric place to be. Not somewhere we ever really saw ourselves coming to, but this year, I don't know, we just scratched the itch of like just so many people we love, we wanted to come and see. Like, we saw they were performing and we were like, oh, do you know what? F it, we ball. We're up here to Edinburgh.
We are. We're going to do our own show. So we managed to find a venue very last minute that could hold enough people that it wouldn't be embarrassing and decided to put on our own show, which hasn't happened yet. But I think it's safe to say it's the best show at the Fringe.
Well,
I assume now when this episode is out, it's in all the newspapers. It's 5-star reviews across the board. People are talking about, did you hear they only did one night?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, do you think it's because they couldn't sell any more tickets than that and they didn't need more than one night? Or was the show so special that it can only be performed once?
Right. We tried to we knew we weren't going to get any reviewers into the house.
Yeah.
Just off rip. So we had to kind of tempt them in and be like, look, it's a very special show. They're like, okay, why? Everyone says their show's special. We're like, well, it's only one night because, well, you'll see if you come, but it can only be performed for one night. They're like, what could possibly happen that it can only be for, I'm going to kill myself at the end of the show. at the end of the show. Is that unique? Has that ever happened at Fringe before? That would be pretty special, wouldn't it?
It's a one of one.
They're like, I'm going to call the police. I'm not going to come.
Yeah, you could put your 5-star review on my tombstone. Look, it's a magical show. It only happens once. I would liken it to losing your virginity. It can only happen once because it's a special thing. If you could lose it 1,000 times, it wouldn't be a big deal, right?
Right. I mean, you're making it sound like, like it's like the blossoming of a sakura tree.
Right.
It's beautiful because
thing.
it's so transitory.
Yes.
Unlike losing your virginity, which is for most people kind of embarrassing, just rite of passage, which is also words you could use to describe our show on Friday. Yes.
There's lots of similarities. It's not going to last long, the show. You will remember it for the rest of your life, not necessarily for the right reasons. And it involves 2 guys.
Yeah.
And it is being filmed.
And only the fellas are going to get off, I think is what's really going to happen.
I feel like because we've been to see so many comedy shows already, I'm in the mood to really knock it out of the park on today's podcast. And yes, I want to bring some comedy to today's show.
Okay.
But of course, we're here to investigate a real paranormal case. We're also here, yes, to see some shows and, perform our own live show. But do you think it's just a coincidence, Kit, that I booked us a 3-day Airbnb stay in one of the most haunted cities in all of the UK?
Well, I'm not Detective Lugo or Inspector Gadget, but, that didn't fly under my radar undetected, I'll be honest. Edinburgh is pretty much famous for this.
There's a reason they have to put on a comedy festival that lasts a month. It's to get people to stay here. Because the other 11 months are ghouls and goblins and demons and rain and monsters.
Yeah, and they have to do it during August too, because if they did this shit in October, it would just be like those scenes in Ghostbusters where the ghosts spill out into the streets and start ripping people's heads off.
Yeah, the comedians are like trying to do stand-up, but you can't even hear what they're saying over the wails of the ghosts and the damned. So yes, we're always here to have some fun, but we're here to investigate one of the craziest paranormal cases that I've come across in my life.
High praise.
I think you'll find, Kit, that yes, this city is pretty crazy. You've got castles, graveyards, old cobblestone alleyways. But the scariest part and the most paranormal part of this city is underground.
Oh, shit.
That's right.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot about underground mysterious cities lately.
Yeah, a bit too much, actually.
I don't know if there's any such thing.
Yeah.
It's like eating too much fruit. I guess eventually you might shit yourself, but, it's generally pretty good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about, there was Agator, I don't really necessarily want to go there, but a city in the middle of the jungle, allegedly. There was the giants in the Grand Canyon city. Actually, now I'm talking about it, I don't really want to go there. But another ancient city, and we brought up a pretty cool story, actually, about the really old case of an underground city in Turkey.
Yeah, in hindsight, given my track record of underground city cases, really shouldn't have hosted a third. I don't know why I thought this one would be different than the other two. But it is different, because today, Kit, our story kicks off in the 1980s. Not only right here in this city, but in fact, only a mere walk away from this very Airbnb. We're going to hear all about it right after a quick word from today's sponsors.
And a reminder that every episode of this show is available ad-free right now on patreon.com/This Paranormal Life. Link is in the description.
As I said, our story today kicks off in the 1980s. Former rugby player Norrie Rowan was a property owner and builder in the Old Town part of the city. And in the 1980s, while refurbishing one of the old pubs, he discovered a passage leading down into the ground. He hadn't been told about any passageway when he purchased the property, so cautiously, he entered the darkness and began to explore, unaware that this tunnel went deeper than he could have ever imagined. This wasn't just one passage, it was dozens, jetting out into different directions, leading deeper underground beneath the city. Norrie Rowan had just discovered the Edinburgh Vaults.
Whoa! Hey, let me tell you, buying a property, dream situation here.
Right.
Because if you're hunting for a house, property's very expensive these days, and normally you got to pay through the nose based on the square footage and let's say how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. So you're telling me he stumbles across something like this, everything's a bonus, brother.
Maybe. We don't know what's in the vaults.
You paid for 3 beds, 1 bath. You've now got a throne room.
Well, yeah,
You've now got a dungeon. Yeah, what's that going to do to the property value?
Don't know if you want that necessarily. I would say there are pros and cons.
A human sacrifice altar? Are you kidding me? In 2024, that thing is going to go for a lot of money on the antique market.
I think there's probably things you could discover that would devalue your house.
Right.
If you're renovating the downstairs, you punch through a wall and discover a room full of skeletons, patch the wall back up. You never found the skeletons. Just going to pretend like that didn't happen.
That's what we call the landlord special. We get out some white paint. We just paint straight over those skeletons. Just paste them onto the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Don't even remove them.
Yeah. So we're yet to see now whether or not discovering these vaults is going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
I mean, you do half joke, but it is something we've actually seen before, is that in the world of haunted houses, not saying this is haunted yet, but it can.
Who said haunted?
Really,
I didn't say haunted.
No one's. I'm just saying in the case of other.
Yeah.
In the case of haunted houses, not other haunted houses.
Sure.
Sometimes
it is haunted. By the way, I just want to say now.
Okay, well,
super
other haunted houses.
Yeah.
Then.
Okay.
Sometimes it negatively affects the property value if someone's been, brutally murdered there, or if families have been driven out by ghosts.
Yeah.
That will literally, especially in places like Japan, where the superstition level is a little higher than here.
Which is crazy. I don't get it. That doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
I'd go as far as to go into the house and kill the family myself.
Yeah, too far.
Because then guess what? The house is free and it's haunted.
It's not free.
It's cheap.
You're going to pay with 30 years of your life in prison, and then you're not going to get to keep the house.
30 years in prison? That sounds like free housing to me. Food and board for 30 years?
It's like, my brother in Christ, do you know what a mortgage is? 30 years in financial prison.
Hey-ho!
It's like, so you're saying I don't have to pay shit? I just stay in a cage for 30 years? Sign me up.
Jackpot. Hard cut to me in court. The jury has decided death by electric chair. Oh,
You turn to your lawyer. What the man? What? I told you from day one this is what was going to happen. It's like we've been negotiating your last meal for a week now. I thought you were taking my lunch order.
Yeah. What? That's my last meal? I wouldn't have said to Uber Eats a Subway. I would have asked for a steak.
I was like, I guess I'm not really hungry right now. Yeah, I guess the 3-pack of cookies from Subway is fine.
So what are these vaults, Kit? What makes them so paranormal, and why were they sealed up in the first place? Well, when you hear about some of the things that happened down there, you're gonna realize maybe these vaults should have stayed sealed. To uncover the mystery, we're jumping back again. This time, specifically, 1788, when the vaults were first created. Edinburgh's population was booming, and businesses in the city needed extra storage for their wares. So, the city created the vaults, 120 chambers built underground with linking tunnels throughout. Now, at this point in the story, the vaults sound like a pretty decent idea, but things quickly went south. As Edinburgh's population continued to grow, the city became rampant with disease, crime, and homelessness. With nowhere else to go, the poorest of the poor started living in the vaults.
No, I was hoping you were going to say something like the hero they needed came along, like Batman, but you're saying...
The rich people forced them into tunnels in the ground. That's like some sort of young adult dystopian fiction book.
That's sadder than the DC comics.
Yeah. By the time the 1800s rolled around, the vaults were completely abandoned by businesses and had transformed into an underground city of nightmares.
Christ.
The walls were damp. There was no running water, no sunlight. When it rained on the surface, the water would mix with the horse manure on the streets and run down into the vaults.
Poo rain? Oh,
come on. Things are already bad down here. It's raining shit. It's only going to get worse, by the way, as I continue to read.
Underground Edinburgh and Natasha Bedingfield be like, don't feel the rain on your skin. God damn it. That is so dark, man. I mean, this is literally the plot of Futurama,
Right. There's a city underneath the city.
where all the mutants live.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, just mostly poor people, I think, in this situation.
Right? No, I wasn't talking about Edinburgh. You're telling me these sick freaks that can live underground?
Down here, the only lamps that were used to light the paths were fish oil lamps, which made the place smell even worse.
Oh my God.
The vaults became a den of illegal activity. There were brothels, illegal breweries, gambling dens, dogfighting pits, hellfire clubs.
You see that little detail of the smell of a fish oil lamp? There's so many little things like that you wouldn't expect about the world of the past. Like I watched a video not long ago on one of my favorite YouTube channels abroad in Japan. He was staying in this beautiful old ryokan in rural Japan, and their whole selling point was like staying here is like traveling back to the 40s or the 30s. We have no electricity, we have no Wi-Fi, this is completely unchanged. It is like traveling back in time, so you can't even charge your phone, you can't even plug in a fan, and the only way to light your room that you're staying in is through oil lamp. And it's like, this sounds so romantic, how relaxing. It's like camping. You would just be brought back to nature and brought back to a simpler time. I think 75% of that video is Chris Broad, the host, saying he can't think or sleep due to the headache he's developed from the oil lamp. Or it's a gas lamp.
Oh.
So it's like the place stinks. He has a pounding headache.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. You have to inhale gas in order to see.
Yeah, I mean,
Gets old quick.
that would be bad enough if they were just living down here with the fish oil lamps. Did I say it was raining poo? Did I mention the poo rain from the skies and the dog fighting and the crimes? This is not a good place. We're talking about families as big as 10 people crushed into one vault with no sunlight and damp walls.
Speaking of trying to buy property, I know they always say when you're trying to buy property, buy the worst house on the best street.
Yeah.
Just don't buy down here, full stop. I think it's the best street in the poo realm underneath Edinburgh in the 1800s. You know, it just can't be that good.
Yeah, you don't want to be a real estate agent in the vaults, where it's kind of like, so we got a vault that just opened up at the back, fits, 12 to 15 family members, very far from the fish oil lamps. So yes, you get the occasional waft, but it's pretty good. The poo rain just comes down the side of the vault, so it kind of looks like you're looking out a rainy window, which is nice.
Now, of course, as you know, there are no schools in the vaults, but we are quite far from the dog fighting arenas.
Which is lovely.
Great for kids.
Yeah, this is the lowest number of child mortality rate in the vaults, which is really fantastic. We're talking 12, 13 years old. They're going to see many, many years before the inevitable end.
Yeah, in some areas of the vaults, we have a child mortality of 1. It's like, oh, 1 child a year dies. No, 100% of children die.
All the time. Now, all of this naturally attracted a dangerous crowd, and soon the tunnels were full of thieves, criminals, and murderers. This place was hell under earth. In fact, the vaults are said to have been used as a hunting ground by the infamous body-snatchers Burke and Hare. The fact that we know the names of these guys is an indication of just how many bodies they snatched. Because I assume a big part of being a successful body snatcher is no one knows you're snatching bodies.
This is a big blank space in my knowledge of history. Who the were the body snatchers?
Burke and Hare? It was worrying that on
No,
the...
I heard their names, but
Yeah.
What do they do?
Body snatchers? Do I have to spell it out for you, brother?
Not a thing.
Well, it is a thing.
It is a thing, but it's not a thing.
What do they do?
I've clearly established I don't know what that means.
What does a
Body
firefighter
snatch.
do?
Right, but were the bodies alive or dead? Or what were they, cutting them up or dissecting them, or what were they doing?
Right, yeah, okay, I guess if we have to break it down.
Were they eating them? I have no idea. The rain
Right.
is poo. Everything is weird here.
Now that I think about it, yes, that really doesn't explain the context of what's happening. It only implies that a body's being snatched, but for no reason at all. Body
Who are
snatchers.
those guys? Burke and Hare, you idiot. I just tell you.
Body snatchers at this time were known as people who would, yes, snatch bodies.
Don't dare stop there. Don't dare stop.
Like from a grave, like a fresh grave.
Yeah.
You basically, you're your nan dies, you bury her. All right, nan, see you later. Have fun in heaven. Everyone leaves.
Bad obituary.
Burke and Hare show up, dig her up. She hasn't been in the ground for at least a day. They dig her up, and they would sell the bodies to scientific schools, essentially, or medical professionals to kind of use as cadavers.
Yeah.
You know, so they could be cut up, dissected, basically used for science. But at the time, especially when money was pretty tight, fresh bodies would go for a lot of money.
Damn.
So this is a real profession.
Because these days, you know, I would know. When I did pause for a long time there, but I can come out and say that I would know dead bodies go for nothing these days. Because the point is, these days we know everything about the body, whereas back then,
Sounds like you've been trying to sell a body. You said you know firsthand.
No, well, I know now. I know now.
Because you tried? Because you what? What?
I'm not... Look, a magician never reveals his secrets. But I know now. I do know now.
A snatcher never reveals the body until the price is right. So you are a body snatcher.
Look, all I'm saying is some people get buried so shallow that they're practically begging to be taken.
Okay, they're definitely not.
You know,
We're
talking 4 feet.
So deep.
But 2 feet shy of the industry standard.
Industry standard 6.
You know, 4 feet deep. Christ, I could practically just be on a jolly little walk through a graveyard, trip over a rock, and I've uncovered a body.
You barely have to snatch it. It's just there for the taking. It's like body picking.
I could just kind of be out for a jolly walk and then just kind of fella just dig for fun anymore. Dig 4 feet, 5, sometimes 6 feet deep into the soil of an active graveyard under the cover of night for fun. That used to be legal.
Yeah. Can a guy crouch in the branches of a tree at night waiting for the family ceremony to end so I can jump down like Batman and snatch the body of their loved one before the worms get it?
What I was trying to say was back then, I would imagine cadavers came at a high premium because...
We didn't know a lot.
We didn't know a lot. So they needed to figure out, you know, what was going on in the human bod.
Yeah, there was still a lot to figure out. So these guys were basically heroes of science. Yes, Burke and Hare were known to desecrate fresh graves. They would dig up the bodies and allegedly store them underground in the cold darkness of the vaults. And of course, when there were no fresh graves to desecrate, the duo would just kill the living. That's an easy way to get your hands on a fresh body. Strangle it yourself. If the vaults themselves didn't already sound like a hotbed for paranormal activity, the site of the vaults was home to horrible events that took place before the vaults were even built. In the 16th century, told you we were going back even further, a wealthy tyrant named Lord Nichol Edwards lived in a house in Southbridge that would eventually be the site linked to the vaults. Now, Lord Edwards was a strong believer in the dangers of witchcraft, and it said that he had a basement in his home where he would torture women that he suspected were witches.
Jesus Christ. Put these people in jail. Why are the people in charge the people who need to be in jail? Right. And by the way, these were the exact, like, that timeline completely checks out, by the way. It's like, so there's a guy torturing witches in Scotland in the 1600s. Like, and when was the Salem witch trials in America? It's like, it was actually the day after the first boats from Scotland arrived in America. Now I think about it. It's like, it was the same people, by the way.
Because they brought the witches. They had witches on board, clearly. This is pretty dark and crazy to think that before the vaults even existed, a guy was doing bad shit underground right where the vaults were about to be built.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's like even in nightclubs, if there's an area where the CCTV cameras don't overlap with each other, that's where the drug deals happen. That's where the bouncers will drag someone in and beat someone up.
Yeah.
The shady things happen in the darkness. If you have a couple million square feet of pure darkness underneath the city, you don't have to be H.P. Lovecraft to start imagining the things that might go on down there. It's not a metaphor. It's not an analogy about the city. There's literally just an underbelly of crime.
Yeah. These guys, these old Victorian guys, were basically the first people to get incognito mode on their iPhone browser. They're like, wait, I can look stuff up and no one can see? I've got 20 miles of dark underneath my house and no one knows what's going on down there? All right.
The possibilities are endless.
Now, the home where Lord Edwards once resided and tortured innocent women is now a bar in Edinburgh called the Banshee's Labyrinth, known as the most haunted bar in the city.
Should we make light of that? Should we be making light of what happened? I don't know. Maybe because I'm hearing about it now for the first time, it seems so dark.
It's incredibly dark and very tragic. I think they're actually not making light of it. The name Banshee's Labyrinth is actually a tribute to the fact that they believe there actually is a banshee.
Right, it's
now
unconnected
on the
to the
premises.
witches. Yeah.
Yes. It actually says on their website that once while refurbishing the venue, a group of workmen heard a terrifying woman scream out of nowhere. A few hours later, one of the men received a phone call informing him that a family member had passed away.
Yikes.
Yikes. So, we're seeing paranormal activity on the actual location where these poor, innocent women were tortured before the vaults were even created. Now, the idea of witches in Edinburgh might sound like a myth, but if you're brave enough to venture into the vaults, one of the rooms you can discover is a real witchcraft chamber used by white witches up until as recently as 2014.
Wow.
White witches, of course, referring to the fact that they're not evil witches. It's nothing to do with race.
Yeah, they're not chuggy pumpkin spice latte loving witches.
Now, this witchcraft chamber, hidden under the streets of the city, was known as, this is the name that I could find, Source Coven of the Blue Dragon.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was left abandoned after the high priest passed away. Now, it's preserved like a time capsule, and visitors can see it just as it was, with a chalice, wands, and a huge pentagram painted on the floor.
Jesus Christ.
Pretty crazy. This is real, by the way. That's not a legend.
I'm getting confused. So the pentagram, I understand, has been a misplaced symbol over the last few years, but you're saying this is white witches drawing the pentagram on the ground?
I believe so, yeah, to perform spells or witchcraft. I'm not entirely sure what it's used for, but it's down there. This is real. You can look at pictures. You can go down into the vaults now and still see it, just as it was. These witches originally used the chamber next door, but due to the overwhelming presence of evil spirits, they were forced to move. Can you imagine a chamber so paranormal that it kicks the witches out?
Yeah.
What is going on down there?
Because you would think if any kind of activity started kicking up, they would just be like, blah, 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 Expelliarmus. They would just
banish it, yeah.
Quick spell, sort anything out.
Yeah, but apparently they were practicing in this original chamber, and then every day when they left, they had bruises and scratches and marks all over them, to the point where they were like, we can't with that chamber anymore. We gotta move 2 chambers down.
Damn.
But it's not just banshees, witches, and evil spirits that reside within the damp tunnels of the vaults. What they're arguably best known for are the ghosts, and the vaults are home to a whole roster of them. The most famous being the spirit of a man known as the Watcher.
The Watcher?
The Watcher.
Do we need to get Detective Lugo on the line? You're telling me the Watcher goes back to the 1600s?
I mean, when I read that, I was shaking. Could this be the same Watcher that we covered in an earlier 2-parter episode of the podcast that a lot of people praised for both your voice acting as the Watcher and my voice acting as Detective Lugo?
Equally heavy lifting, I think, throughout the series.
Well, you had a lot of the story, I think, because it was a 2-parter, so it was mostly you.
Yeah.
But then I had 2 lines of dialogue.
Right.
That you wrote for me. A lot of it then improvised on top of that.
I was going to say, the audience wouldn't think it was 2 lines.
Right, because it was a lot
He
of...
was actually a completely bit part cameo character.
Yeah.
And you really...
If you haven't heard that episode, it is fantastic. Definitely recommend going back and listening to it. Every time I read the words The Watcher, all I can hear in my head is the really echoey, we think it's the Watcher, Watcher. It's really great. Unfortunately, this spirit, the Watcher, is also known as Mr. Boots.
Oh.
But that's not quite as scary as the Watcher, so I figured we'd just go with the first name.
Yeah. Although Mr. Boots, I could see that being an A24 horror movie. You know, it's like the Babadook. Like, it's a word that doesn't seem scary, but actually is.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, you could, an A24 horror movie just being like, put him on one shoe at a time, Mr. Boots. You know, there's some creepy thing. Yeah. He'll lace you up like your mouth is like boot laces.
Okay, he's cooking. You know? Let him cook.
These boots were made for stalking.
All right, we've
gone
too far. A24 just passed on the script, actually. They were on board.
That's what it would be. It would be a series of creepy shots of boots moving by themselves. And then, you know how they do like creepy renditions of nursery rhymes and things for all these trailers? It'll be like someone whistling the boots are made for walking. And like heavy breathing. And then like, one of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Yeah. Reverbed out.
Mr. Boots.
Only in cinemas from October 31st.
His first name is Pussin, though.
Jesus.
We should clarify. His full name is Pussin Boots.
First name Pussin.
His name is Mr. Pussin Boots. Look, getting back to Mr. Boots has been seen more in the vaults than any other spirit. He used to be a night watchman way back in 1788 when the vaults were used as storage. But when the vaults were abandoned, Mr. Boots was fired from his job. And he didn't take the news too well because the legends say he killed himself.
Ooh.
Now his ghostly figure can still be seen, wandering the dark tunnels under the city. Multiple visitors have reported seeing a strange man watching them from the corners or standing at the end of the hallway in a tri-corner hat.
A tri-corner hat is kind of you look like a sea captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A little naval theme going on here. Now, this sounds a little crazy. I think we've heard some stories today that there's a historical explanation that we might believe would be a reason why some of these spirits would be turning up. But for Mr. Boots, I wanted to do a little bit more research and see if I could find any first-hand experiences and testimonies from people who have seen him. And imagine my surprise, Kit, where I found one of those stories in our own email inbox.
Wow. So for years we have been asking our beautiful listeners to send in their own experiences of the paranormal to this paranormallifepodcast@gmail.com. And you're saying someone did that about Mr. Pussin.
Don't call him that. Don't call him Mr. Pussin. His name is Mr. Boots, and he lost his life tragically when he was let go from the vaults, and we should treat him with respect.
Sure.
This was an email from listener Chloe George, who said, I used to consider myself a skeptic when it came to the paranormal. However, I am a massive fan of the origin of paranormal stories, lore, and the deep and dark parts of history, which is why I ended up visiting Edinburgh back in February. Myself and two of my colleagues decided to go on a paranormal tour of certain areas of the city. Our first step was the graveyard. Nothing paranormal happened. The tour made us jump. We laughed it off. Blah, blah, blah. Then we visited the Edinburgh vaults. As soon as we got to this area, I felt the feeling of dread, something I've never experienced before. While our guide was talking, I could see out of the corner of my eye a man dressed in a cloak and a hat with curly graying hair. He was about 10 to 15 meters to the side of me. And at this point, I'd like to reiterate that I had no previous knowledge of the vaults. I secretly told my friend that I could see a man, and she told me she felt like someone was watching her.
Right, if you go down there and haven't heard any of this story before, you're like, why is the from the Quaker's Oat box down here?
Right. Well, it is funny because she says in this email next, I had to double check with the tour guide to see if there were any actors down in the vaults. Because maybe you would assume like, they like to spook the guests. And you're like, I like the little addition of the guy in the tri-corner hat. And your guide is like, almost like Morpheus in The Matrix. Is like, tell me what you saw. Yeah. Pulls out a gun. Yeah. It's like, it was just a guy in a tri-corner hat. We have to move. You're like, is he not part of the show?
How many corners did the hat have?
Right. The shoes. Were they boots? Were they Nike slides? What are we talking about?
I guess if I had to count, we're talking 3 quarters. hell, lock down the vaults.
Obviously, I was frightened as I could see him out of the corner of my eye. But when I looked directly at the spot he was standing in, there was nobody there. Isn't this crazy, Kit, to get an email like this to our own inbox talking about the ghost that apparently exists mere 10 minutes walk down the road from us right now?
This is an unbelievable lead so far.
Yeah.
And definitely testament to just how haunted this city might be because, have we ever really heard of kind of as instant and clear evidence of a ghost like that?
Right, really firsthand, seeing it, your friends are seeing it, you all are experiencing it. I'd like to say that I picked this email so that we could help Chloe find an explanation for what she saw. We got this email in 2017.
Okay.
It was 7 years ago. I think it was one of the first ones we ever got.
Chloe's in a nursing home right now and she's completely senile, so this is going to be kind of a Titanic moment, if anything. We're going to try and figure this out for her, but she's long gone.
She's rocking back and forth singing, "These boots are made for walking." So, Kit, we've heard a little bit about the history of these vaults. The death, the murders, the ghosts, the witches, the evil spirits, the body snatching. But I think if we really want to give this case a yes, what we need to do is see this place for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're going.
Huh?
I'm not joking. I booked us a tour tonight, and we're going to head down into the vaults and investigate them for ourselves.
Tonight? Christ alive. Jesus. So what you're saying is we have to wait. It is daytime right now. If you're watching this on youtube.com, you're seeing it's daytime. We have to wait. Like real ghost hunters, we have to wait till nightfall.
Isn't this so cool?
And then we're going to go into those vaults. That's extremely exciting.
That means we have approximately 6 hours to prep all of our gear, all of our equipment, read a couple Bible verses, and then head down into the Edinburgh vaults.
Quick stop by the graveyard, bring a couple spades, couple shovels.
Right.
And then who knows, we might just trip over something, make a couple bucks on our way to the vaults.
You can store bodies down there, no problem. They stay real nice. All right, we're now going to flash forward 8 hours to right before we're going into the vaults. But first, a quick word from today's sponsors. All right, welcome back to the podcast. We've now grabbed all of the gear, the paranormal investigating equipment that we have. We've got a ton of stuff. We've got a spirit box, a signal scanner, an EMF reader. We've got cameras. We've got a temperature gun, along with multiple mics, multiple cameras. Kit, are you ready to head down into the Edinburgh vaults?
No time like the present. I say let's do it.
All right, wish us luck. All right, we're just about to head into the vaults. This is it. We're down by South Bridge. The vaults are right below us right now. Okay, so we went down into the vaults, down quite a steep, dark set of stairs. And I'd say right off the bat, our tour guide made it very clear how important it was that we stick together, stay close, and don't go off by yourself. She turned left, we turned right. We really did, at the first opportunity, split from the group and just run off into the darkness, which turned out to be a bad idea because almost immediately we just ran into a spider web. Ran into a series of spider webs.
She was like, the great thing is you'll know exactly where we need to go in case you lose sight of me because we have red velvet ropes cordoning off the bits that you shouldn't really be going on to. Phil didn't hear that. He was like, what'd she say, Kit? I said, all you need to know, Phil, is red leads the way, brother. And just unclipped the first rope we saw and took off into the dark.
It is comical how embarrassingly useless we actually are out on the field, that we hired a professional guide to take us through the vaults. She looked away for 1 second and almost like in a medieval fairy tale, you and me are just caught in a giant cobweb, helplessly being like, we turned the wrong way, the spider's coming.
Yeah, in the movies, that's always how it goes. It's like, I cannot stress enough. It's like the hobbits walking through all right, like, we're going through the enchanted lake.
Right.
Don't look in the water. All right, there's one rule, don't look in the water.
Sure.
No problem. I will keep eyes on the skies. Oh, is that a shiny pebble? Oh no, Aragorn, help!
Right.
That was us, strung up.
Yeah. But after that, after we dusted the cobwebs off of ourselves, we descended a little bit further into the vaults. And let me tell you, it was just as scary as I thought it was going to be. This is way scarier than I thought it was going to be. All right, kid, are you feeling anything? Are you sensing anything?
I guess I knew what I was expecting, but being down here is visceral, it is real.
I was expecting a bit of a temperature change when we got down here. Didn't realize that change was gonna be hot as shit. This place was lit only by candles.
Yeah, quite an impressive detail, I will say.
It really was. Luckily, no fish oil lamps, because that probably would have made it smell pretty bad. But it was just as old and decrepit and scary as you would think. Main corridors kind of jetting off into dark chambers. I mean, there is a path, but it's still just a lot of rubble and dark rooms and emptiness. It was very scary going down there.
And ladies and gentlemen, you know, this is not the lost city of Akator. This is not the lost temple underneath the Grand Canyon. There is not room for 50,000 down here, even though there probably was 50,000 as per Rory's story.
Yeah.
But these rooms are some are large, which you'll see, but many were very small indeed, actually.
Very small, very cramped. And at one point we were forced into one of them with the rest of the group. That was a little tough.
Yeah.
That was a little tough, I won't lie. But luckily, because Kit and I are professional paranormal investigators and we've been doing this for so long, even in that extreme situation, we were able to keep our cool.
Spiders!
What the f*** was that? It is boiling. We are in hell. But of course, you guys don't want to just hear about the vaults themselves. You want to hear about paranormal activity, okay? And as you know, we brought down a huge collection of paranormal hunting equipment. We're talking an EMF reader, the spirit box, the temperature gun. We're gonna go through everything that we managed to gather while we were down there and come to a conclusion as to whether or not we think there is something paranormal down in the vaults, okay? I don't know what happened to you when you were down there, Kit. Me personally, I had what I would say are two very strange paranormal occurrences.
Oh?
And I have managed to isolate them in the footage. I've gone back and I've reviewed what we've captured, and I thought we could kind of analyze it here on the podcast. All right, first off, our lovely guide, Shannon, kind of took us through the rooms one by one, told us a little bit about the history of the vaults, you know, stuff that I covered pretty fantastically, I think, in the first half.
Absolutely not. I looked like a deer in the headlights as soon as she started talking. She was telling me reams and reams of information I knew nothing about.
Well, she mentioned the poo water.
Yeah, well,
I told you about the poo water.
I was hoping that was the one bit that was a typical Rory lie, but she got to the poo water pretty quickly.
She did. But while we were in the second room of the tour, Kit and Phil and I were at the back. She was monologuing, telling us a few stories about people that they've seen in the vaults. I heard a noise coming from the room behind us, the empty room that we'd just come from. And I literally, it was such a strange moment that I tapped my microphone several times after it happened. So I knew when I was looking at the waveform later, I could see where the taps were and go back and try and isolate this scream just to make sure I wasn't going crazy. Because I did have some pretty crazy thoughts when I was down there. At one point, I thought about killing Phil, eating Kit. You know, just kind of thoughts that a man has in the dark. But this actually...
You were possessed. You were temporarily possessed.
I wasn't possessed.
Rory started speaking in German when he got down there.
I have the clip right here. I'm going to play it once. And Kit, see if you can hear what I heard from this clip.
The Sinclairs, they remained in that submerged tomb until the 1820s. The lower lock, it was drained to make way for Waverley Station.
Did you hear that? That's literally what it was. But
A ghost stubbed his toe.
just in the room behind, I heard, and I looked at you and I looked at Phil and I was like, that was a scream. Did you hear a scream? I'm going to play it a few more times just in case you missed it in that first recording. Listen out for an ah.
The lower lock, it was drained to make way for Waverley Station.
There it is. Once again, isolated in case you missed it.
Make way for Waverley Station. Make way for Waverley Station. Make way for Waverley Station. Make way for.
It is unmistakable, ladies and gentlemen.
There was a scream. I turned around and looked in that room. There was no one there.
And Rory, I can attest that, of course, look, when you're in some of these places, that was crap. Let me do that again. When you're in some of these places, look, these are high footfall destinations. This is part of the problem being a paranormal investigator is especially, God, I mean, we're here in the middle of a kind of hectic season in Edinburgh. So you are not getting these vaults to yourself, really.
Right.
In terms of like a whole day or like middle of the night. So, you know, I'm always conscious there might be other people somewhere else in the vaults or somewhere behind you.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, because Shannon told us we were the last people in that night.
Yeah.
So as we traversed our way around, you can be all but guaranteed that there was no one. I mean, they practically, when we left at the end, they practically locked the doors behind us like, okay, cool. All right, we got Phil, we got Rory, we got Kate. All right, we're done.
We're done. There's no one else down there. What was extra terrifying is once I'd kind of put that behind me and just settled back into Shannon's storytelling, she continued to finish that story in the room, talking about, I believe, two sisters and a lover who, you know, had fallen to some horrible fate involving the vaults. And right at the end of her story, she said that some people, when they're down here in this room in the vaults, can hear the sisters screaming. And if you can't hear them, maybe you hear the man. She said that after I literally heard a man scream from the other room. I genuinely couldn't believe it.
Unless Shannon is writing the script as things are happening.
Right, yeah.
You know, she hears a bang and she's like, well, have you ever heard the tale of the banging man?
That was my first kind of bit of strange paranormal activity, which unfortunately I wish Kit and Phil had heard as well. So I'm glad you at least got to hear it now. Otherwise, I genuinely would have thought I'd gone a bit crazy.
I was pretty deep into a Flappy Bird session, kind of while Shannon was talking. I was zoning out a little bit, but I'm so glad you caught that because I did not hear it.
There was one other piece of paranormal evidence that we did manage to gather. Of course, one of the other pieces of equipment that we brought out with us was the spirit box. This is a really cool bit of kit that we actually bought specifically for this investigation. It is more or less an AM/FM radio that allows you to scan different frequencies in either direction and actually record them to the device itself while you're asking questions to the spirits, while you're exploring paranormal areas in the hopes that they are kind of communicating through the radio waves.
Sure.
We entered one portion of the vaults, which I believe was described as being one of the Watcher's favorites, aka Mr. Boots. And we decided we would, at this point in the tour, take out the spirit box, ask some questions, and do a little bit of scanning. And something kind of weird did happen. I don't know if you caught this when you were down there with me.
I did. I managed to look up from Flappy Bird for 1 second.
All right, we're loading up the spirit box. Let's see what we can get.
Are you there, the Watcher?
Mr. Boo. What the f*** was that?
Crazy stuff.
So you could hear Rory cycling through kind of frequencies. That's that kind of like rhythmic. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually see literally cycling through those, and then hitting a certain point, and that was strange.
It completely freaked out.
That's not a sound I would associate with even scanning a radio.
Yeah, and that reaction really wasn't exaggerated. We had, as you can hear from the clip, had been scanning the room, scanning different areas, and had that consistent kind of white noise.
Yeah.
Until we entered one room, and I just simply said, Mr. Boots. The second that I said that, I actually managed to capture the waveform of the clip here, Kit. So you can see the static, and then you can see the exact point in which I said the phrase, Mr. Boots.
Yeah, it's night and day. He because we can see these rhythmic pulses, Mr. Boots, and then he went, meow. I don't know what he tried to say, but he got a meow, Rory.
It is choppy and weird. The cool thing about the spirit box is you can actually record the signal onto a memory card and play it back. So I actually have the isolated audio right here from the point of noise and what happened when it was activated. Check this out.
Yo.
That's some horror movie shit.
Yeah.
That's some
Sounds really
paranormal
cool.
activity. Listen to this one more time. Really don't like that. I actually really don't like playing that back. It was very scary.
It's like the ghost, the spirit box version of a flat line. It's like the whole way through, like doo, doo, doo. Oh shit! What just happened?
I'm really glad that we got that because it was really great to walk away with some quite concrete paranormal evidence. You know, being able to just have white noise until we say the name of the ghost in the vaults, and then the signal's completely disrupted right afterwards. That's pretty damning. That's pretty cool.
It was interesting to hear a little bit, like you said, Rory, about what rooms are associated with which ghosts, because the Watcher was, by all accounts, Mr. Monopoly. He was hoovering up property in the vaults. Apparently, he'd put his dirty little paw prints all over much of the vaults. But
they were like, he summers here, he's got a house here, he's often seen having lunch in this one, but he usually sleeps here.
He's like a toddler. You pick something up. He's like, no, that's mine. I need that. Okay, well, there you go. I'm going to use this thing instead. No, that's mine too. So give me that too. But apparently there was, which I think might have been around this room. There was one room in particular that was supposed to be like, Shannon was explaining. It's like, nah, all right, he might like the other rooms. He doesn't play with this room.
Right.
You know, if you so much as mention, if you look at him sideways, he will. I think she said people have been kicked in the ass before out of the room. They've been thrown out like DJ Jazzy Jeff in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah. I mean, those were the only two pieces of paranormal evidence that I managed to capture. The weird scream, ah! And this. And this one is a little more scary than the other, admittedly.
It was very much like Popeye's chicken biscuit.
Yeah, it's a very Little John-esque vocal sample, you know. Yeah. So I would say, you know, is this enough evidence today? Let's hear from Kit. Kit, did you have any paranormal experiences while you were down in the vaults?
I am not going to bury the lead here by saying I did not get the kind of hard-hitting that Rory... I didn't even catch that one.
Can we hear
just
this
very
again?
quickly?
Because I feel like we're making fun of it, and I want to stress how traumatic an experience it was for me at the time.
The Norlock, it was drained to make way for Waverley Station.
Like, also... Because I was trying to make the very sensible point, well, listen, guys, we better remember that this could always be someone else in the vaults, also just exploring innocently. Why the f*** would they make that sound? Why would someone do that?
Noise. It's such a weird noise to make.
I didn't even do that when I ran into a spider web like I was in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I was just like, oh, I did not get something as hard-hitting as that. I think the bit that I really got compelled by, or that kind of really resonated with me, and I don't know if that was because it was in a kind of spine-tingling way, or if it just jumped out to me as a particularly worrying part of the stories that Shannon was telling us. But we were in... Also, it was interesting because this was in the biggest kind of room of all. It was the kind of double-heighted ceiling.
Yes, it's called the double height room, I believe. Didn't have time to mention it. We really had to talk about the poo water, so it was kind of a Sophie's Choice situation between the incredibly haunted double high room, which a lot of people have seen Poltergeist, or the fact that shit rain came down from the skies.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning against, the wall, kind of casually back against the wall, and Shannon was like, here we have the poo room. This is kind of where the poo water would just kind of trickle down the wall, still to this day. I was like, oh, pulled off the wall.
Kit went,
oh, that would be it,
that
actually.
was it. Yeah.
That's the sound I make when I touch something gross. But she started talking about, she talked throughout our trip about some of the various entities that had been known to be seen. The two girls, the man, the young lad, another man who lost his mind, the Watcher.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people who've come through there. But then she was talking, do you remember this? She was like, also there's the being. The dark being that would hide in the corner of the room.
I might have missed this part.
She was basically like the Darth Maul from Insidious, like hides in the corner of the ceiling of this room.
Yeah, maybe I should have mentioned that in the first half of the investigation.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I was you were talking about, a cobbler who still cobbles shoes to this very day. Sorry, can we get more on the dark one?
Yeah, it would have been great if it turned out that I knew about it, but I knew if I told you about it in the first half, you and Phil wouldn't have gone down there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a being that only haunts people called Phil. But I might be kind of embellishing it very slightly, but she did talk about how multiple people had seen sort of something in the corner of this room.
Right.
And that someone had experienced this thing, then kind of coming down and attacking them, or coming towards them and then feeling this terrible emotion. But it got me thinking about this line of questioning of like and you've got your spirit box that you were trying to record the beings with, this idea of EMP. So I thought, look, I'm not seeing it with my own two eyes. I don't have 20/20 vision. It's entirely possible the dark one is there and I'm not seeing him. It was a dark room. So I did take some videos. I knew Phil was on kind of filming duty for the most part. But I did take some photos and videos of that room to try and see if anything could come out in the cut. But I think, like you, Rory, aside from the odd orb, which, let's face it, we respect our audience too much to start talking about orbs at minute 45 over this Paranormal Life podcast. We're not going to start getting into orbs.
Oh, we're at
and
hour
hauntings.
plus now, buddy. We are not 45.
I didn't see the watcher in those videos.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of nicely segues us into the downsides of this case, the things it has going against it. For example, let's start. We did bring the EMF reader.
That's right.
Scanned a lot of rooms, asked questions, went to the place of the watcher and all these spirits. I didn't see the thing budge once. It was pretty much flatlining the entire time.
It is true. You'll probably see that in a couple of clips that, it had the usual kind of like you start using the thing. Sometimes it gets a little warm up to begin with.
Yeah.
But actually once it settled, it didn't move around too much, which we've used them enough now to know that like it's not that hard to get an EMF reader excited. And a lot of things can interfere with it and get it excited.
Yeah.
But it didn't really do that much.
No, not that we could tell. The other thing that people talk about a lot when they have a experience with a ghost or a spirit or a poltergeist is temperature drops. The temperature did change when we went into the vaults. It got hot as hell. Right. We were boiling down there.
Right. Yeah, not in a particularly paranormal way. There was we would have killed for a cool, mysterious breeze on my neck.
Yes. Yeah, we would have felt it if there was a breeze. Fortunately, no breezes, no, breathing down the neck, no temperature drops. It was consistent, if not hotter, as soon as we got down into the vaults. And then thirdly, we filmed a lot of stuff. We had 3 different cameras. We had a GoPro camera. And after reviewing the footage, even in the areas that have the most reported paranormal activity, we didn't see anything.
That's right.
Nothing in the shadows, no one peeking around the corners, no one lurking at the top of rooms or in the darkness. So it's kind of a tough one today. I'm not going to say we didn't get anything. We got the scream. And we did get what I think is actually the craziest piece of paranormal evidence, which was the response from Puss in Boots himself.
No.
From the spirit box recording. So I guess we have to take all of that evidence that we managed to gather, along with the stories of the people who came before us, and decide right now whether or not we believe the Edinburgh vaults truly are paranormal.
Well, Rory, clearly what happened is those ghosts knew we were podcasters because they were like, should we take human form for the night? Or no, these guys have a podcast, man, so it's more of an audio medium. Oh, okay, I'll scream and then I'll kind of with their little recorder.
I like it. We got a lot of audio.
We got
evidence.
some audio evidence, which is pretty fitting.
Right.
I wish one of the other demons had seen that we have a YouTube channel, and because it probably really us on YouTube, to be honest. Vault ghosts.
Yeah.
But it does help us here on a podcast.
Yeah, it really does.
It would be pretty tough, actually, and it makes it seem like we've rigged it, which we haven't. It would be pretty tough if we had just picture-perfect, terrifying images of the Watcher, and we're like, yeah, it's hard to actually describe it. You kind of got to go see it.
Yeah, that would be hard to kind of convey if we did see the Babadook down on his hands and knees in the vaults. But you can hear all the evidence that we have today. Look, I'm going to take the lead on this one. It's a tough choice to make because this is my own case, and I brought you guys down there, and I was feeling very passionate about it.
And we spent a lot of time, money, and energy getting there.
We really did. But I think, for me personally, I didn't feel enough paranormal activity. I didn't capture enough convincing, definitive paranormal activity and evidence that I could give this a yes myself today. So I think, unfortunately, based off of our own experience, there might be more in the future, but based off the one that we had this week, I'm going to give the Edinburgh Vaults a no.
Ooh. The police are going to be here in minutes to shut Rory down. You can't say that in the city walls of Edinburgh. Really interesting. And yeah, I do feel bad. I feel as though we're committing some sort of paranormal crime by talking smack about the Edinburgh Vaults. And I feel peer pressured by the hundreds and hundreds of people before us who've had paranormal experiences there. This is the trouble with the paranormal. It's very subtle and subjective, and it's different every single day. So I know if we were, wasn't it Chloe?
Chloe
had an
emailed
experience in the vaults. If we're her,
famous liar, Chloe.
Would be
famous con woman, Chloe, who emailed in. I assume she's involved in some sort of benefit
all right,
scheme
you don't need
now.
to go, Jesus, we don't need to go that far. That's fraud. We would be
She is a
thinking
fraud.
quite differently. No, because it's what I'm saying is we can go one day and nothing happen, and someone else can go the next day and something happens.
That's true.
But just because the Vaults is famous, just because the Vaults is notorious, just because the Vaults has had many, many paranormal experiences, we do need to still come at it with a critical eye and say, look, this is one of the most famous paranormal spots on Earth. Hundreds of thousands of visitors come here a year to check out these paranormal vaults. Show me the photos and videos, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of as simple as that.
Yeah.
If we're saying we can see these things, if you're saying people have seen these things,
Right.
Yeah.
We actually talked to our amazing guide, Shannon, from Meerkat Tours. Highly recommended if you want to come to Edinburgh and you want to do this
Not
yourself.
Meerkat Tours, Mercat Tours.
Meerkat Tours. We went underground, didn't we?
Because I think, what did she say Mercat was? Because it was the market. The market.
Oh, is that what
Maybe
it is?
it's Gaelic for market.
Mercat.
Mercat.
Meerkat.
Meerkat.
Meerkat Tours. She was great. She said she's been working there for a good few months now, and even herself hasn't really seen anything. I think she said maybe some blowing on the neck. But really, if you're going down into those vaults Monday to Friday for 6 months and you haven't seen anything, I don't know. Maybe it's time to consider that the vaults aren't as paranormal as people think. Were they home to some horrible, horrible events and a tragic time in Edinburgh's history? Yes. Do we believe there's ghosts and spirits living down there now still? I'm going to say no.
Oof, I think it's a double no.
It's a double no this week, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. What a fun episode. This was so cool
What
to
a waste
get
of
to.
time. I mean...
Well, no, it wasn't a waste of time. Did you not hear the scream?
Wow.
Did you not hear the scream, brother?
Wow, we could have just... Why the f*** am I here?
I'll tell you
If
what.
you're watching us on YouTube, this is... What are we doing? What are we doing here?
I'm going to play this little clip from the spirit box again because this genuinely, even though I've said, I think part of me said that this was a no because I can't afford to believe this is real because it would scare me too much. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That really creeps me out a little bit. But I'm glad that we went down there. Glad we captured some paranormal evidence. Hey, if you want to come check this place out for yourself, do it. Come prove us wrong. And if you are listening to this podcast, I'm happy to say that you probably did hear some clips that we've included in today's episode, some audio clips. But as I said, we filmed everything. We filmed a whole vlog of us going down using GoPros, professional cameras, iPhones. We're going to be chopping that up and putting that on YouTube. So you can see some of this evidence firsthand. You can see my reaction to when we heard this on the Spirit Box. You can actually see us walking into a giant cobweb almost immediately. We managed to capture it all. It's going to be a very funny vlog and also just a really cool opportunity for you to see what the Edinburgh Vaults really look like.
Yeah, I didn't know before I went,
Yeah.
actually.
So head on over to YouTube, search for This Paranormal Life, and you'll be able to find that vlog. It'll be out today when you're hearing this. And of course, the whole reason that we were able to come up here to Scotland to go down into the vaults is all because of the amazing people that support us over on patreon.com/This Paranormal Life. Because of their support, we were able to do this and go down and capture this paranormal evidence. And the other cool thing that we're doing up here in Scotland is actually performing This Paranormal Life live on stage in front of over 100 people. It's going to be such a fun night. And hey, maybe you listen to this podcast, maybe you watch the vlog of us down in the vaults, and you want more content from our little paranormal vacation to Edinburgh. Well, you can get it because over on patreon.com, we have released a recording of that live show. as a bonus episode. So you can go on over there and you can listen to the entire live show that we performed the next day after visiting the Edinburgh vaults.
We are, science is one step away from you just inhabiting my body, possessing me like in a movie. Like,
that's how close we are.
That you guys might as well be here in Edinburgh with us. You've come with us down into the vaults. You've watched this. You've listened to this. Come with us to the speakeasy at the Royal Scots Club tonight and hang out virtually if you weren't there in person with a bunch of TPL fans going through some of the best email submissions to This Paranormal Life in history. Some absolutely hilarious, ridiculous cases were recorded that night. We had a blast.
Yeah, it was so much fun. So head on over there, patreon.com/This Paranormal Life. There's a ton of amazing rewards on every tier, bonus episodes, extra content, some cool merch. Check it out. Hope you enjoyed this week's On Location investigation. Whew, that was a big one. But we will be back, of course, in the studio next week with a brand new Paranormal Tale.